good, doing okay. Year 9 greetings. Welcome back to Lord of the Flies. Animosity is a strong feeling of resentment, hatred, tension, aggression, dislike between people from one person to another. In Great Expectations, then, the animosity between Magwitch and Compeyson began when, well, think about this court case. I think you studied this last term. There was a court case between Magwitch and Compeyson, and what was it about the results that created animosity between those two characters? You could Google why does Magwitch hate Compeyson, and it'll give you the answer. Good memory test as well. So you read the end of chapter 1, and Jack has he rounded on a pig, tried to stab it, but whether it was because of the pig's agility or Jack's temerity, his fear, his nervousness about stabbing a living thing, the animal escaped. Jack says next time he won't be so hesitant. We're going to look at chapter 2 and how Golding hints at more negative aspects of the island, or some hostile aspects of the island. So we're going to read pages 16 and 17, and we're going to ask you to write a summary of the early part of this chapter. I've given you two options for this summary. One's very straightforward, and one is slightly less straightforward, but perhaps slightly more fun if you like writing and analyzing. So let's go into Word and introduce you to, oops, what have I done there? Let's introduce you to some language that will help you access the thing. Evacuation, escape, or leaving. Anything with E at the front usually means going out, like exiting or egress or something. Uninhabited means no habitation, which means there's no life. Sun slashed faces. Look at how William Golding creates this personified enemy of the island, sometimes slashing and hacking at the boys. Doink. Well, William Golding, I've actually stripped out some of these old-fashioned words. William Golding dates his text by using these, I say, schoolboy language from the 1950s. Doink just means hit. You've been hit, really. Piggy's cradling the great cream shell. I only highlighted this because I wanted to just point out how Piggy's the one that is symbolic of the one of order and the person who looks after. He's a custodian or guardian of rules, and the conch, which symbolizes civilization. Hindering means hind is a behind, isn't it? So if you pull somebody behind, then you're dragging them back. You're hindering Ralph, which means I want to do my zoom, which means you are keeping Ralph back. Or if somebody's talking to you in a lesson a lot, you could say they're hindering you or interested in you. Treasure Island, do you remember us talking about these 3 books that Golding studied or taught, perhaps, or read when he was a boy or a teacher? Coral Island, Swallows and Amazons are novels, adventure novels with polite boys from polite towns in England who are going on an adventure and behaving as the best British do, politely and socially and cooperatively. Golding's writing a dystopian version of these 2 novels. Treasure Island, I think, is about pirates, if I remember. Groups of pirate heroes. Mulberry is a purple berry, and there's a little boy that has a mulberry-colored birthmark, and a very ambitious sentence here. This boy stood warped out of the perpendicular by the fierce light of publicity. Stylish, isn't it? Warped means bent, and bent, he's basically bent over. Perpendicular means straight. straight up, and this boy is hunched over, no longer perpendicular because he's a bit shy. So he's crouched down, doesn't want to speak. We'll find out what he says shortly. Let's start chapter 2, Fire on the Mountain. By the time Ralph finished blowing the conch, the platform was crowded. There were differences between this meeting and the one held in the morning. The afternoon sun slanted in from the other side of the platform, and most of the children, feeling too late the smart of sunburn, had put their clothes on. The choir, less of a group, had discarded their cloaks. Ralph sat on a fallen trunk, his left side to the sun. On his right were most of the choir. On his left, the larger boys who had not known each other before the evacuation. Before him, small children squatted in the grass. Silence now. Ralph lifted the cream and pink shell to his knees, and a sudden breeze scattered light over the platform. He was uncertain whether to stand up or remain sitting. He looked sideways to his left, toward the bathing pool. Piggy was sitting near, but giving no help. Ralph cleared his throat. Well then, all at once he found he could talk fluently and explain what he had to say. He passed a hand through his fair hair and spoke. We're on an island. We've been on the mountain top and seen water all round. We saw no houses, no smoke, no footprints, no boats, no people. We're on an uninhabited island with no other people on it. Jack broke in. All the same, you need an army for hunting pigs. Yes, there are pigs on the island. All three of them tried to convey the sense of the pink, alive thing struggling in the creepers. We saw squealing. It broke away before I could kill it. But next time, Jack slammed his knife into a trunk and looked round challengingly. The meeting settled down again. So you see, said Ralph, we need hunters to get us meat. And another thing. He lifted the shell on his knees and looked round the sun-slashed faces. There aren't any grown-ups. We shall have to look after ourselves. The meeting hummed and was silent. And another thing, we can't have everybody talking at once. We'll have to have hands up like at school. He held the conch before his face and glanced round the mouth. Then I'll give him the conch. Conch? That's what this shell's called. I'll give the conch to the next person to speak. He can hold it when he's speaking. But look, and he won't be interrupted. Except by me. Jack was on his feet. We'll have rules, he cried excitedly. Lots of rules. Then when everyone breaks them, doink. Ralph felt the conch lifted from his lap. Then Piggy was standing cradling the great cream shell, and the shouting died down. Jack, left on his feet, looked uncertainly at Ralph, who smiled and patted the log. Jack sat down. Piggy took off his glasses and blinked in the assembly, while he wiped them on his shirt. You're hindering Ralph. You're not letting him get to the most important thing. He paused effectively. Who knows we're here, eh? They knew at the airport. The man with the trumpet thing. My dad. Piggy put on his glasses. Nobody knows we're here. Nobody knows where we are, said Piggy. He was paler than before and breathless. Perhaps they knew where we was going to, and perhaps not. But they don't know where we are, 'cause we never got there. He gaped at them for a moment, and then swayed and sat down. Ralph took the conch from his hands. That's what I was going to say, he went on. When you he gazed at their intent faces. The plane is shot down in flames. Nobody knows where we are. We may be here a long time. The silence was so complete that they could hear the unevenness of Piggy's breathing. The sun slanted in and lay golden over half the platform. The breezes that lay on the lagoon had chased their tails like kittens were finding their way across the platform and into the forest. Ralph pushed back the tangle of fair hair that hung on his forehead. So he may be here a long time. Nobody said anything. He grinned suddenly. But this is a good island. Jack, Simon, and me, we climbed the mountain. It's wizard. There's food and drink, and rocks, blue flowers. Piggy, partly recovered, pointed to the conch in Ralph's hands, and Jack and Simon fell silent. Ralph went on. While we're waiting, we can have a good time on this island. He gesticulated widely. It's like in a book. At once there is a clamour. Treasure Island, Swallows and Amazons, Coral Island. Ralph waved to the conch. This is our island. It's a good island. Until the grown-ups come to fetch us, we'll have fun. Jack held out his hand for the conch. There's pigs, he said. There's food and bathing water in that little stream along there and everything. Didn't anyone find anything else? He handed the conch back to Ralph and sat down. Apparently no one had found anything. The older boys first noticed the child when he resisted. There was a group of little boys urging him forward, and he didn't want to go. He was a shrimp of a boy, about 6 years old, and one side of his face was blotted out by a mulberry-coloured birthmark. He stood now, warped out of the perpendicular by the fierce light of publicity, and he bored into the coarse grass with one toe. He was muttering and about to cry. He wants to know what you're going to do about the snake thing. Ralph laughed, and the other boys laughed with him. The small boy twisted further into himself. Tell us about the snake thing. Now he says it was a beastie. Beastie? A snake thing ever so big. He saw it. Where? In the woods. Either the wandering breezes, or perhaps the decline of the sun, allowed a little coolness to lie under the trees. The boys felt it and stirred restlessly. So, there is a talk of a beast. There is talk of the place being an island. Oh, by the way, before we leave PowerPoint, I think we've already left PowerPoint anyway. I'm going back in. I just wanted to just go over something from the previous. Sorry, before we leave Word, previous chapter I highlighted and forgot to tell you about it. This part here. So look at how the boys are starting to attack and violate the island. Jack snatched his knife out of the sheath and slammed it into a tree trunk. Next time there'd be no mercy. This is what you read at the end of chapter 1. And then he looks around, and then they broke out into the sunlight. So they're just stampeding through the jungle, slashing, hacking, trying to attack its living animal, its wild animals. And then while they were busy finding and devouring food as they moved down from the scar toward the platform in the meeting. So the boys are traveling down this this scar that the plane has carved into another man-made thing has carved into the jungle. Okay, I'll shut up there. Let's go back into PowerPoint and watch a quick video summary of what we just read. Scary. So write a summary. This is the thing we need you to do today. Write a summary of the early part of this chapter. Either there's this genius online called Mr. Issue, I think, or Issue, and he's created this close summary. So we're going to send this to you, and you simply fill in the gaps. It just reports, it just recounts what we've just read together. So, for example, after the three boys, Ralph, Jack, and I wonder which of the top words is going to go into the gap. Rules, Ralph, Piggy, maybe Simon. Ralph, Jack, and Simon return from their exploration. Or you could write an analytical summary, which is just a bit of evaluation from you, telling us what you think about it and why characters are behaving as they do, what's Golding's intention. It's completely optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but it's a little more satisfying. So summoned for a second time by the sound of the conch being blown by Ralph, the boys gather on the beach. They wait for Ralph's report of his expedition. Ralph's hesitant holding the conch. The island's tremors coincide with the shell being handled, giving it a magical aura. So a little analysis there. Piggy serves as an encouragement, and finally Ralph speaks. He reports on the topography and the fauna, meaning the animals, including the pigs. Here, Jack recounts his near kill with regret and relish, and so on. So well, with the analytical summary, you just have to make all the words up on your own steam. This one is simpler because it's filling in the gaps, and you're even given the words as well. So so push on with those, folks. Read pages 16 to 17 and write as a summary. The last question of the day is, what early signs are there that animosity might develop? Whoops, might develop between Jack and Ralph. So I can't let that go. Let's try again. Let's try again. What early signs are there that animosity might develop between Jack and Ralph? Bye for now.